Have you ever thought that the big changes that you want to make in your life depend more on creating small habits than on having these big attitudes? For example, if you want to get in shape, all you have to do is just to get the practice of eating well, exercising regularly and getting enough sleep. To learn a new language, you need to take part in a course, do some exams, and have the habit of studying every day. If you want to be financially independent, then you need to get into the habit of spending less than you earn every month and invest in the difference. Instead of wasting your time setting yourself unachievable goals or trying all the types of shortcuts to success, all you have to do is to make one small change every day. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a series of tools that you can use to create habits a lot more easily. In today's Arata Academy Summary, we're going to be looking at the ideas put forward by James Clear, who was one of the great believers that the quality of your life depends on the quality of your habits. And he wrote a book called Atomic Habits, and the title itself already gives us an idea about the importance of habits, of small habits, habits that are so small, like an atom. And yet they're capable of making a huge impact in our lives because these habits, they produce results that accumulate over time. When it comes to changes that you want to see in your life, it doesn't really matter whether you see yourself or not as a successful achiever. What matters right now is whether or not you're having the habits that are putting you in the direction, in the path to your goals. In other words, you should be much more concerned about the trajectory that you have than the actual specific position where you are. We always think that we need to change our results. The truth is that the problems are not in our results. The problems are related to the habits that we have that are producing the results. So once we solve the cause, the consequence solves by itself. Just think about it this way. Your goals are the results that you want to achieve. Your habits are the processes that will lead you to these results. So goals are pretty good to give you some direction, but the habits are the essential part to making the steady progress that you want. For example, everyone who goes on a diet has a common goal to lose weight. The difference between the people that lose weight and those who don't are the daily habits, the daily eating habits of each person. The purpose of the goal is to win the game, but the purpose of the habit is to play the game. And we often fail to give importance to these small menial tasks because they practically have no impact in our lives in the present moment. But when we look back and we see the accumulated result, the effect that it has with repetition, then we understand the true power of the small habits. And this leads us to yet another problem. If you're only happy when you really achieve your goals, you're going to spend a lot of time very frustrated, very sad, feeling sorry for yourself. If you find a way to be happy just by the fact that you're in the right path, you are going to be able to find happiness every day. So to see things this way, you need to change your notion of identity. And I talk a lot about this in our courses. The best way to change your identity is to change what you do. And this is where real change happens. Instead of saying that you like to be this type of person who does this or that, you become the person who does that. And every time you practice one little habit, it is as if you're getting closer to this new identity. And the opposite also happens. Every time you fail to practice a particular habit, it is like taking a step back from your goal. It is important that you understand the 4 steps that make up any habit. They are the cue, craving, response, and reward. You need to apply all these 4 laws of behavior change involving all these steps. Let's take a look at each one of them. The first law, make it obvious. A habit is a behavior that has been repeated so many times that it became automatic. If this behavior is not practiced enough, in each one of the 4 steps, the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward, it's not going to become a habit. And this is how it works. The cue will trigger a craving. It motivates an answer. and it generates a reward. If you pay attention, everything starts with the cue, the trigger. So the question is, what is the easiest way of triggering a habit? To make that cue pretty obvious. There are two ways to make this cue very obvious: time and place. For example, when it is noon, you have lunch. When you're home alone, maybe you watch TV. When you get back from work, then maybe you stop at the gym. If you enter a bar, you're going to drink beer. A lot of people say that they don't have the motivation to create a habit, but what's lacking actually is not motivation. It's a clear cue to do what has to be done. A simple and efficient model for this is a formula saying basically, I'm going to do this particular behavior at this particular time, at this particular place. For example, I'm going to exercise myself when I go in front of the gym, when I'm going from work back home. I'm going to read a book when I enter my room at night. I'm going to study half an hour on my bus when I'm going to work in the morning. So just remember the formula. I'm going to do this particular behavior at this particular time, at this particular place. Now let's talk about habit stacking. One trick to creating new cues is to identify a habit that you already have and put in the new habit just after it. This is the technique of habit stacking, because you put one next to the other. For example, you could use the habit that you already have of brushing your teeth in the morning as a cue for doing the next thing, which would be 10 minutes of stretching. So then you do brushing your teeth, and that reminds you that it's time to do your stretching. This link can have as many habits, this stacking. You can add as many as you want, just using one as the cue to the next one, and this one's going to be the cue to the next one, and so on. The secret is to carefully choose the very first one. This one's going to trigger all the chain of events. Another effective technique is to change your environment, to make your cue so obvious that it can't ignore it. For example, if you want to play guitar, keep your guitar in the very middle of your room. Don't put it in a corner. Don't put it hidden away from you. So instead of you becoming a victim of your environment, you're changing your environment to help you to create the habits that you want. So this works both in physical environments, but also in virtual environments. The better your environment is, the less power and effort you're going to need to carry out the good habits and also to avoid the negative behavior. By the way, if you want to get rid of the bad habits, all you have to do is just to do the opposite. So instead of making the cue very obvious, let's make it invisible. So we talked about virtual environments. So if you notice, every time you get your phone, you spend hours and hours on social media, just delete the apps. If you're watching too much TV, unplug it from the electricity and hide the remote control inside of a drawer. And in fact, all four of these habit-forming elements and laws that we're examining today, you can always reverse them, and then you get rid of your bad habits. So now that we saw this initial phase, the cue, the trigger, now let's go to the second law, which is to make the habit attractive. Second law, make it attractive. The cue triggers the second of the four steps of a habit, which is craving. When you smell that food in the oven, you have the urge to eat. When you see a notification on your phone, you have the desire to read what happened. And when you're on the sofa, in front of the TV, maybe you want to have some snacks. Even before you perform that action, your body is already releasing dopamine. You have desire, and that desire will lead you to actions. So this is very important to create new habits. The second law says that you need to find a way to make the habit that you want attractive. So the goal here is to create an attractive, irresistible desire to fulfill the habit. So the key here is to associate the habit that you want to have in your life with a positive experience. For example, let's say you are a big fan of a particular TV series. You really like that one. So you might decide that you will only watch the episodes of that series when you are doing the thing that you want to do. For example, when you are doing your exercise, when you're on your treadmill, while you are stretching. or just as soon as you finish the particular activity that you want to have in your life. So the goal here is to create the desire for that thing that you like, to watch the TV show, but in order to be allowed to have that pleasure, you're going to have to do the other thing that you want to have in your life as a habit, have to do your exercise. The idea here is that the habit that you want has to be placed just after you finish the activity that you need to do. Another way to make the habit appealing is to do it alongside other people that have similar goals as you. For example, if you want to be a healthier person, it's much smarter that you are hanging around with people who are also very healthy people, who are always talking about sports and eating well, rather than joining the group of friends who are always hanging around, eating junk food and being very lazy. And also, when you are in this group of the people who are very excited about healthy activities, you might even be a little bit worried about the way they will be judging you if you are going back to eating and choosing junk food. That might also help you to make better choices. Therefore, to get rid of the bad habits, you can always reverse the law. So you make the habit unappealing. If it's not appealing to you, it's not going to generate the desire, and therefore you're not going to act. So let's now move to the third law to make the habit easy. Third law, make it easy. We are much more likely to carry out the actions that will take the least amount of effort. So the idea is that we want to make our habit very easy. The easier it is to be doing the actions, the easier they are to become a habit. For example, who do you think is going to be more able to have the habit of exercising? Somebody who has already a gym that is very near their home or their work, or somebody else who has to get their car and be stuck in a traffic jam for more than 1 hour to get to the nearest gym? Who do you think is going to be more likely to stick to a diet? Somebody who already has prepared all their meals for that particular week and they keep it frozen in separate pots for every single day of the week, or somebody who will just have to order something quick in the last minute and has no idea what's going to be the choice they're going to have. Who's going to be wasting more time on social media? The person who already has all the apps downloaded on their smartphones and the apps already have the passwords pre-registered, or somebody else who has to turn on the computer, wait it to be booting, and then doing the login in each social network. So, as we see before, the cue will trigger a desire. That desire will lead us to take action. This response is the behavior itself, and this is all called the habit. So whether it is going to the gym or following a diet or going to social media, these are all examples of responses to cravings that are started by a trigger. The easier it is to carry out these actions, the greater are the chances that this habit will be created and also maintained. The key to creating any habit is repetition. It is not perfection. You don't have to do your best every time you make a habit. You just have to do it over and over and over again. It is all about practice. The more you practice a habit, however small, however atomic, your brain will begin to do this task on autopilot, just like a muscle adapts to the exercise that you do very often. So, this is why you can create habits from very small, very simple tasks. For example, you can read, I'm not joking, 1 page of a book per day. And then, slowly, you develop your habit of reading. You can go to the gym and just do 1 push-up. And that's it. And slowly you are developing your habit of exercise. You can get, if you have problems developing the habit of flossing, some people do, I don't know why, but you can just floss one time and that's it. So all these actions, they will not generate the result that you want, because if you're just doing 1 push-up, what good is that? But the point is that you're not trying to get the result from that particular action. What you want to do is to create a habit. And once you develop the new behavior, then later you can improve. Let's now talk about the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule. One technique for applying the third law is the 2-minute rule. When you start to create a new habit, it should be something that will take you less than 2 minutes. That's it. 2 minutes of reading, 2 minutes of exercising, 2 minutes of flossing your teeth. Even with such little time, just the fact that you're doing that action, that is what's going to reinforce the identity that you want to create for yourself. In the end, you're going to see that once you start doing something, it's going to be very easy to continue doing it. The opposite also applies here. If you want to get rid of a bad habit, what do you have to do? Just make it difficult to perform. For example, you want to get rid of the habit of eating sweets. So get all those treats you have in your house, just get rid of them. So now you're going to have more effort to accumulate those candies again. If you don't want particular websites, block those websites that you don't want to visit anymore. Get the TV out of your bedroom if you want to watch it less. In short, make it very easy to perform the habits that you want to do and very difficult to practice the bad habits that you want to give up. Now you might be wondering, what comes after that? Because we mentioned there are 4 steps whenever we are creating a habit. So the 4th one is the reward. 4th law, make it satisfying. So far we saw that a cue triggers a craving, and that craving leads us to action. This becomes a habit, and what follows immediately after carrying out the action is the reward. It is the consequence. What happens? The most important point for creating and maintaining a habit is to feel good about it. Even if it's a very momentary satisfaction, but you need to have a good feedback. The feeling of success is a sign that you did it well. So nobody will have the desire to create a habit that was going to make them feel miserable. That's just not going to work. The 4th law fixes this by helping you to make the habit a satisfying activity, a satisfying habit. The more satisfying is your experience with this new behavior, the more likely you are to repeat it over and over until it becomes a habit. Satisfaction. That's a message from your brain saying, hey, that was great. Let's do it again. Changing your life is much easier when you feel satisfied. So now you need to make sure that your reward is immediate, because the brain unfortunately is not evolved to make a lot of connections between things when they are very complicated. The reward has to be very clear, very immediate, because for the brain to make this association, the reward has to happen to you very soon, just after the action has been performed. Not a few minutes later, not a few hours later, please, not a few days later. That's not how habits are formed. The reward is immediate. And somehow we have some problems in certain situations when we are suffering the consequences of things that accumulate with time. For example, if you're eating a lot of pizza right now, you're going to have immediate satisfaction, but it can be harmful if you overdo it. Smoking can, if you are a smoker, can give you certain pleasure, but can be pretty detrimental to your health over the years. Not studying today might allow you to relax, to have some fun, but you will feel the consequences of not studying with time, with the years. So unfortunately, we can't really capture that very intuitively. It doesn't matter how detailed your plans for the future are. When you're making practical decisions, you should always see that the instant gratification wins. That's how it is. So the sweet taste of that dessert is right in front of you, while, for example, some overweight or even diabetes problems might be something very far away in a distance that might not even touch you. There are many people who wouldn't want to give up instant pleasure for a future unseen, unpredictable benefit. That is why actions that tend us to give immediate result, immediate rewards, they tend to be repeated. This is another very important concept. If you're able to have a long-term vision, if you are able to exchange that instant gratification for the future benefit, you are a very special person. You are standing out from the crowd. and you're going to struggle less. You're going to have big rewards on the long term. The hard choices that you make today, they make your life easier tomorrow. And some easy choices that you make today will make, unfortunately, your life pretty difficult tomorrow. And you're the only person who can decide. So this is a skill that can be practiced. It takes a lot of energy. It is a resource that is quite limited. And we need to train this ability. But we're going to have to also understand our human nature, so we don't go against the human nature. So this is done with the fourth law. We need to make a way to make this habit something good, something satisfying, something that gives us some satisfaction somehow doing what we want to do. And also bringing dissatisfaction when it's the type of habit that we want to get rid of. For example, if you really don't enjoy doing exercise, you know that the benefits you have in your future life are really good, that you really need to exercise, but you just don't like going to the gym, or you hate those people. All right, do something else. Instead of going to the gym, you go to practice tennis or play soccer or dance classes, or just move yourself, anything that gives you some type of an immediate pleasure. This way, you're creating a reward that keeps you motivated all the time, and then you can have the future benefits. The opposite also works. If you don't want to do a particular activity, but you're a little bit addicted to that, you create an immediate punishment every time you do it. For example, if you are trying to stop smoking, and whenever you get that cigarette again and you light it, you're committing yourself to donate $20 to that political party that you despise, that you hate. So you're going to have this very negative feedback when you're doing something that you want to stop. The important thing to remember is that the reward, whether being positive or negative, it has to be something that you feel immediately. So then you really associate these two things in your brain. We tend to remember the end of an experience rather than the entire experience. So if you have some activity, a long activity, everything went well, but then at the end turned out pretty bad, you have the tendency to remember the bad experience as a whole. And depending on the habits, you might also have invisible rewards, because some activities might make you feel better about yourself, improve your mood, give you more energy, make you feel relaxed. And when you identify, you understand these invisible rewards, then maybe you're not going to need the secondary rewards anymore, because you already understand that activity makes you feel good. Let's now talk about the habit tracker. One of the things that can bring you the most satisfaction is just to see your progress. That is the gamification. Let's put it that way. You want to see that you're getting better at whatever it is that you're doing. For example, if I am playing guitar and I'm getting better and better, I get excited and I want to keep on playing it. If I am doing physical activities and eating better, and I see the differences in my body, that reinforces my desire to keep on eating well. If I am saving money and investing, every time I go to my bank account and I see my reserves growing, it makes me excited. I want to keep on saving. The problem is that for many of our habits, we don't really see our progress in a very clear way. So maybe you want to have a visual way to be tracking your progress. For example, you can have a diary in which you're writing down all the good types of foods that you're eating. You can have a diary to write down the physical exercises that you're doing, or how many chapters or pages of a particular book you're reading that particular day. And there is an even easier way to keep track of your habits, and here is a technique that was popularized by Benjamin Franklin in the 18th century. Franklin wanted to have 13 virtues, 13 behaviors that he valued as a person, and for this he created a kind of a special calendar. In the columns were the days of the month, and in the lines were the 13 virtues that he wanted to acquire. And every single day he fulfilled the particular virtue, and then he would put an X on that calendar. So that visual identification of his progress was showing him that he was doing well, and that was an extra motivation for him to not break that sequence of multiple X's in his calendar. The focus was to continue having that progress. He was not really trying to get a specific result. He just wanted to keep on doing it. So nowadays you can do something very similar. There are many apps that do basically the same thing. There are habit trackers. You can just do the activity and then you basically put an X, and then you're going to see the sequence of your progress appearing that will give you some satisfaction, and you will want to keep on doing it. At the end of this video, I'm going to give you a list of some very good habit tracker apps, and I'll also make comments on the advantages and disadvantages of each one. With these applications, you can even use the habit as a trigger to the next habit. Remember the linking of the habits, the habit stacking that we were talking about before. So you do one activity, then you follow the next one. You always have the list of the habits that you want to be implementing in the palm of your hand, in your smartphone, and that will help you a lot to be tracing exactly how your journey is toward these habits. Tracking your habits will also bring you integrity. When we often complain about the lack of results, the truth is that we usually have a little bit of a distorted view of what we are actually doing or not doing. We say, I'm putting so much effort. Not really. Take a look at your habits tracker. It will very much show how your real behavior has been in practice. It will give you a very good understanding. Why do you have those particular results? You can see, I just went to the gym 2 times the entire month. It's written here. There's no way to get away from the truth. And that truth will help us to make better decisions in the future. Some people might say that doing this is a little bit of an extra effort because now they have to create 2 habits. They have to do the thing, and also they have to be opening their app, to be marking down the progress. Well, there is some truth to that, yes. If you are one of these type of people, you may try to automate as much as possible the record of your habits. For example, there are some workout apps that when you are watching the exercise you have to do, it is automatically recording all your workout sessions. There are phones that track how many steps you do, so then you see that you're walking more or less. There are the possibilities of checking your bank statement and your credit card, so then you have a good idea of how you're spending, how much you're saving. And then you get all this data that you get from different places and check it once a month. Once a week. And with this you have a register of your habits, and you know how to consider to be a success, a X that you can mark in your calendar, and you continue moving ahead for your progress. Never miss twice. Now, however consistent you are, it is inevitable that one day you will break the sequence, unfortunately, because nobody's perfect. And when that happens, what you have to remember is a motto: never miss twice. So if one day you're doing that sequence, you have a lot of access, you're doing well, but one day you forget to do it, or you're so busy you really can't do that particular activity, just do your best to continue your habit the very next day. The truth is that losing one day is not a big deal, does not cause problem. The problem is the repetition of missing, because then it's basically the beginning of a new bad habit. One trick to get back on track is to use the 3rd law to the extreme. Make your habit very, very, very easy. Again, just do 1 push-up. That's it. That's your exercise for the day. Read 1 page, read 1 paragraph. That's it for today. You can't say that you can't have time to read 1 paragraph. And then you do your best to not miss 2 days in a row. These small actions are not going to bring you immediate results, but at least they reinforce the identity, the habit that you want to create. Let's now talk about the habit contract. If the habit tracker doesn't really work for you, you can also use a different tactic, a little bit more advanced, which is to create a habit agreement with other people. Basically, you're going to choose one person that you trust, to be accountable for how your journey is in creating your new habit or abandoning your bad habit, whatever. So you make a contract with that person, you make an agreement with this accountability partner, and then you determine that you will have to keep doing that activity every single day, your habit. Or you're gonna never do that thing that you do not want to do, right? And then the idea here is that in case you break your sequence, that accountability partner will give you a very bad punishment. And you don't want to break your promise, the contract that you have with this person. And there you go, it's gonna help you a lot. When I'm talking about contract, it doesn't mean that you need to get a lawyer or anything like that. You just do a verbal agreement with this person, as long as both of you understand what you're talking about. Just the fact that you know someone else is observing your behavior, that will help you a lot. In the case of the apps that you're gonna receive the list at the end of this video, we'll also show you one particular app to make it easier for you to be creating these habit contracts with other people. All right, so now we are at the end of the video. I want to ask you a very important question. Just imagine what your life would be like if you apply the 4 laws and then you create the habits that will help you to become the person that you always wanted to be. What would your health, your body, shape, your appearance would look like if you would have the habit of eating well, of exercising, of resting well? How your bank account would look like if you would have the habit of spending less than you earn and investing well, the difference. How would your career would look like if you would have the habit of studying, improving constantly? If you want to do any of these things, but in real life you're not really doing them, they're just wishes, what you have to do right now is to identify which of the 4 steps that we covered here that are missing for you. Maybe your cue is not so clear, the trigger is not so obvious. Maybe the habit is not appealing enough for you to have the desire to actually do it. Maybe the habit is a little bit difficult to be carried out. Or maybe you don't have appropriate reward. This type of question will get you to have small changes in your life. But these small changes, they accumulate with time. Remember that, and that can make a complete life change. And for now, as I promised, now there's a gift for you. You can go to arata.sc/habit trackers, and then you can download a free list with comments about all the best apps that you have for being able to track your habits. I made a list with options for iOS and Android, and I made comments on the positives and also the negatives of each one of these apps. Using one of these apps and applying the 4 laws that you learned in this video, it is guaranteed that you are on your journey to create your new habits.